Good morning. As mentioned, my name is Mark Maiozzi, and also with me today is Tom Bach. And Tom is one of our OT network field service engineers. And we work on the Rexel automation team supporting our customers in their OT network reliability and risk reduction projects, along with numerous digital transformation and smart manufacturing type projects. Our focus for today's discussion is on the OT network, and we concentrate from the DMZ down, or that point of separation from IT to OT. Our team of factory trained network engineers complete the boots on the ground and virtual data collection portions that are required to begin a reliability or smart manufacturing projects. And I want to highlight that our services are manufacturer agnostic. We are Ethernet IP focused, and we're not just specific to Rockwell Automation, but we're specific to Ethernet IP. And our work is based on industry standards or common industrial protocol. Standards from NIST, IEEE, ODVA, the Department of Homeland Security. And we do reference, though, industry best practices from the Cisco and Rockwell collaboration, also known as CPWE, or Converged Plant-Wide Ethernet, which are best practices for the machine-level network based on CVDs, or Cisco validated designs. And the backbone to any digital transformation, predictive maintenance, or analytics project is the machine-level network. And we can help there as well, also both on the physical and logical side. And this is an example here of our machine level network design deliverable package, which really does include like over 50 pages of detail for drawings, documentation, switch configuration, VLANs, cable labeling schemas, as documentation truly is key. And as we work with our customers, and we talked this morning, I am assuming that there is already Ethernet assets or Ethernet connectivity on the manufacturing floor. Now, we work with our customers in a phased approach and start with assessments. So the roadmap and planning to analytics, predictive maintenance, or really just improvements in the reliability and security of your network is based on data. And that data is specific to your operations, your production lines, and your facility. So when we start by looking at activity that can cause risk to the availability of your machine level communications network. Again, our focus is from the DMZ down, or where that DMZ would be. But we do connect to your network, and we collect PCAPs. These data packet captures provide a snapshot in time around the traffic from your OT network. And this example here on the screen is an example summary report, and it summarizes the risk. And the deliverable is almost overwhelming to the amount of data provided back. One of the services recently just completed was over a gig's worth of data that came back from the PCAPs. But the insights are specific to highly active assets, ghost assets, vulnerabilities. And we then work with you to prioritize next steps and take the deep dives that are required to complete any type of remediation planning. Now, we provide insight back to you in a raw data form and in a report type summary. So we also provide you with the remediation and guidance to reduce any of those risks that were identified, along with the documented vulnerabilities. And as you can see here, we embed the remediation link right inside of the document for you. So not only do you get a critical listing and a priority type set, but then we also give you the remediation for that as well. And I know this slide is sometimes hard to view on the screen, but for some customers, this is the first glimpse that they get into what the network actually looks like and how the traffic is actually flowing. And the map can be a very beneficial graphical representation to implementing VLANs or segmentations. It is very easy to point out where some of those highly active assets are on the network and how they're talking within the facility. Numerous different breakdowns on the reporting is sent back out, including critical reports, which are highlighted. And this is an example of how the data comes back in the packet capture. iPhone traffic should not be on the OT network or be visible inside of that network. So these are some of the things that, stand out very easily to us to, be able to put some remediation in play. And Tom Bach, I mentioned, is joining us this morning. Tom, any thoughts or insight when you saw this come across and come back to you?
Well, it was one of those holy crap moments, because I was in the process of actually doing the data collection for what's called an SPS, or a security posture survey. And the tool that I use to capture this data, some of you may be familiar with it, is called Wireshark. It's in the public domain. Essentially, it is a network sniffer. So it can, I use it to connect, obviously, to the OT network, typically by plugging into a managed switch. Mostly, or most of the time, they're Cisco, sometimes a static switch, but essentially the switch is configured to do what's known as port mirroring. So one or more of the ports can be configured to essentially squirt all that traffic that's, excuse me, either on a particular VLAN or all VLANs, and capture the data. So while the packet capture is running, typically I'm standing in front of my laptop and just watching the screen build, and it's all happening in real time. So I was out at this particular customer, I don't know, probably a couple of weeks ago, doing my PCAP thing, and I just happened to glance down at the screen, and at first I had to do a double take, because in my mind I'm like, did I just see an iPhone on that network traffic? So I paused the display. The packet capture was still running in the background, but I essentially froze the display and started browsing back up through the collected data. And sure enough, not only was there an iPhone asset, but even a little more concerning is, if you notice directly above the iPhone call out, there's a PCAP showing traffic to a HomeKit. And if you are a member of the iPhone Apple community, HomeKit is an Apple technology that allows for things like home automation. It's Apple's version of essentially Alexa, turning the lights on or off, or closing the blinds if you have motorized blinds, this type of thing. But when I saw both the HomeKit query and the iPhone ping on an OT network, which, by the way, this customer was in production, they were running their process, that literally jumped from the display and kind of caught me around the throat, because again, this is a production network running process critical devices, and somehow or another an iPhone popped up, which tells me, well, the customer was convinced that there were no unauthorized wireless access points, but in my mind, I don't know of any other way to get an iPhone and the HomeKit protocols to show up, especially during a quote unquote a closed network scan, without the use of a wireless access point. So that also tells me that the customer was not aware of any sort of rogue devices on the network. So I've been doing these packet captures and security posture surveys for quite a while now, but this is the very first time where I noticed iPhone traffic on an industrial network. So it's just a good reminder that a lot of people just don't know what's lurking on that OT network. So, like I said, it was a pretty big surprise. So, go ahead, Mark.
Thanks, Tom. The information, as I said, in the overwhelming fashion, right? Because we did snip out some information over here to not share exactly where it came from, but as the customer will be able to see this information, it's a line by line detail back. So to be able to find out where that's coming from, how to remediate it, what to do, is provided. And as Tom mentioned, Wireshark is used for the data packet captures. When we bring the data back, it is then analyzed with Rockwell Network Services utilizing a tool, an OT tool called Clarity, Claroty. And if you're familiar with Rockwell Automation and Compass partners and programs, they are OT focused, continuous threat detection, network reliability company. And that's the tool that we utilize to provide these snapshots in time, data packet captures, where we're working with the IT and OT teams within our customers. It has to be collaboration. We need IT approval to be able to configure the switch so Tom can have access and complete the PCAPs. We work with the company in regards to mapping, process flow, identification, and naming of assets, critical devices, critical assets within the facility, and take all these interviews and data collection information together to provide detailed summaries specific to the operations, the risk, vulnerabilities, and how we can move that forward. So it's a very detailed document set that comes back to identify activity that could be causing risk, identify those ghosts, the open ports, and how we can help communications move forward. As we talk about standards in those interview process and asking questions and understanding what's going on inside of the facility, I referenced standards earlier. So if there are concerns about the policies and procedures that are in place within the facility or within the organization, we provide the data back to you referencing those standards. These are the NIST standards here, the 800-82 and -53, cable labeling standards from TIA. And then if there are best practices from the CPWE guidelines, we'll incorporate that for you also. But the detail is based on standards and best practices for you to be able to implement policies and procedures within your organization focused on the OT side. As we go through a lot of these assessments and discussions with customers, there are policies and procedures in place on the carpeted side of the house or in the IT side, but those just don't flow onto the OT network. And that's where the vulnerability comes into play. That's where the risk happens. So identifying what those gaps are and being able to remediate based on industry standards is only going to help our manufacturing customers be stronger, more reliable, more robust, and move into those smart manufacturing type projects. And as noted, each line of data collected provides insight and detail. And we also compile everything in summary reports for you to help identify where you want to start with your remediation or improvements or planning, and how you can move forward with some roadmaps to get to those planning sessions that you need to get the funding required for a documented, robust network. Some of the projects require a deeper physical identification related to the physical network. We've had numerous projects where we needed to be boots on the ground, open up panels, identify the assets that are on Ethernet, because there's just so many. Ethernet has grown so much over the years, and it's turned into some spider web messes and some real maintenance nightmares for a lot of customers. So just like the service Tom was talking about prior to, is during production, everything that we're doing is per safety protocols and not to impede production. So we are actually gathering assets, gathering information with your team, and then providing you information on that. If we're identifying assets, we then provide you life cycle information on those assets. We're reviewing physical installation practices, cable labeling standards within the facility. So focusing on both the physical installation of that network and the logical portions of it as well. I'll pause here for a second. John, any comments or questions pop up in the chat?
Well, I'm looking at, this is Tom. I'm looking at a question from Paul regarding IPv6 on HMI PCs. As far as getting conflicting opinions, I can state unequivocally that at this time, Rockwell is not implementing any of the IPv6 protocols. The nature of an industrial network is such that obviously you want controllers to have direct access to I/O, and I/O to have its message data available to an HMI. So that, by its very nature, means that everything, or the industrial network running on a what's known as a /24 or a 255.255.255.0 subnet mask means that, again, all the assets have direct one-to-one connectivity. So there's nothing inherently dangerous or potentially upsetting by mixing both IPv4 and IPv6 on the same network. But from a Rockwell standpoint, IPv6 today is really a non-entity. So hopefully that answered that.
Cool. Thank you, Tom. As we move into a security zone, and industrial DMZ and firewalls are an essential aspect of protecting machine level networks. The combination of firewalls and IDMZ zone concept are key aspects of the defense in depth approach for security. And this combo also plays an important role in allowing remote access to the network. And we're not going to spend a lot of time on it now, but we'll further cover and discuss remote access in a upcoming Tech Tuesday session in early part of 21. Now, as we move from the assessment phase into the design, implementation, validation stages, we now have the data and documentation required to deploy secure remote access, to deploy predictive maintenance, CMMS packages, machine level analytics, along with asset health and monitoring. And one of we found that the Factory Talk Network Manager is one of our first recommendations after the security and availability assessments are completed. And really, it's to increase visibility and diagnostics across the machine level networks, because our OT professionals were just lacking the visibility needed to make decisions. And Factory Talk Network Manager truly helps operations and maintenance teams monitor the health of the automation assets. And our network engineers work on site with you to properly deploy this offering from Rockwell. And the solution does go hand in hand and works as the OT face for some of the Cisco network assessment monitoring packages, network assistant monitoring packages that may already be in place on the IT side of the house. So this program is very familiar to IT professionals. Tom, I'll come back to you because you're the person who's deploying this for our customers. Any insight or discussion you could share around the deployment of Network Manager?
Sure. So, like Mark mentioned, Cisco already has a bag full of tools, certainly for the enterprise side, whether it's Cisco Network Assistant, and there's another real-time monitoring tool. The name escapes me, but FactoryTalk Network Manager is essentially the OT or industrial production version of those Cisco tools. So just like the Cisco tools keep a steady eye on switch infrastructure, FactoryTalk Network Manager does the same thing, but again, it focuses on those managed switches that are deployed on the plant floor. And understanding that, and I've seen a lot of industrial environments where on the plant floor, there's actually a mix of both Cisco and Stratix, which is the Rockwell managed switch solution, industrially hardened managed switch solution. So FactoryTalk Network Manager, again, focuses on the production environment, and the way it does this is it essentially collects the log data, the system logs, diagnostic logs that are present in both Stratix and Cisco switches, and it uses Network Manager uses the ability and the intelligence that's in all the managed switches to do everything from kind of building up that network topology map that you see on that slide, kind of lower center, and with its ability to have direct read access to the system logs, you kind of like think of things like vibration monitoring that's done for large motor pumps and grinders and so forth, where you can actually get some early warning of potential upsets before the equipment actually fails catastrophically. Network Manager essentially uses the same procedure, only for the network diagnostics. So as ports may start to become overloaded due to excess traffic or actual hardware issues in the media or one of the adapters, Network Manager can pick up on those, and there's actually an email component that can notify the administrator or administrators, if there's plural, alert them to issues that may be starting to bubble up to the surface on the IT or on the OT network. So
nice. Okay. Thank you. Now, with a robust machine level network, we can also provide real-time data around the health of the industrial automation control system assets, both on Ethernet and non-Ethernet assets, as migrations occur or machines come in and out of your facility. We can provide you with cloud-based data, real-time information on the health of your facility. And I'll just state at this point in time, the My Equipment offer is specific to Rockwell Automation assets only. But if you're looking for insights into where some vulnerabilities are, what assets are at risk, what the overall health of the facility looks like from an industrial control system asset aspect, we could provide you with some great dashboards that are updated in real time for you to get a better picture of what the health looks like in the facility. And if a goal is to truly deploy a documented, secure, robust plant floor Ethernet network, Rexel can work with you through that entire process, and we take the next steps with you. And we also provide a 25-year warranty for the uptime of that physical network. So we're here to support you through the entire phased approach of assessments, of design, of validation, of monitoring, and continue that circle to complete network reliability focused on the OT assets. John, you might have been on mute last time. I'm not sure if anything else or if any other questions came in regards.
No, you were right. I was on mute. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Tom. I was talking away, and so yeah, I was. Thanks for answering that one.
Yeah, no
Sure.
problem. That
But
never
right
seems.
now, there's nothing in there. Mark, what can I ask a question? Just what if they don't have Ethernet? Right? They probably islands of information, and
Sure.
what can we do? Because you're talking more diagnostic and assessment of if they have one, right? What if they don't have one?
Yeah, then we would move right into the design phase. If there's nothing to assess, right, and we've got a couple facilities. Project last year was figuring out what was there. They had one controller that was Ethernet on the floor, and the rest of it was still data highway, a lot of remote I/O. So there was no reason to start with the assessment. We just worked on a design for the machine level network and started with the documentation required for them to deploy Ethernet and put the backbone in because they knew the migrations were coming, right? The writing was on the wall. They had to remove the PLC5. Some of the modicons were really causing them a lot of risk, and they needed to do that migration to keep the facility productive. So the plan was scrapped to review the assessment and just start with the design. So bringing in the teams, both physical and logical, to create all the documentation required for them to deploy the network. So then as they go through their capital projects and migrate the assets from DH485, remote IO, whatever those control net type of communication protocols might be, the backbone is already in place for them to plug and go, right? And then start collecting data from each project and keep moving through the facility. So if there's not Ethernet or maybe one, controller that came in or very little Ethernet on the floor, then we'll just start with talking about designs and implementing designs based on documentation.
We did get one in that kind of now is the exact opposite, right? So let's say the current network, it's from Dan. Our current network is one physical network with the machine level on a VLAN. My understanding, this is not recommended. Is this true? That's Dan's question. So they have one current network, one was physical network, and with the machine level on a VLAN.
Sure. Tom, you want to take a swing at that with the with what we've seen on, they had that one VLAN and they thought it was, but some of the experience that we've had recently with the segmentation. You might be on mute. Or you went to let the dog out.
Sorry about that. Sorry. Yeah, I was on mute. What I started to say was having the machine network on a VLAN is a great start because the idea is you don't want to have the automation equipment sitting on the same network that is running all the desktop PCs in the office, and somebody's printing out a 200-page PowerPoint on a network printer that also happens to be connected to the control logics or the compact logics that are actually running production. VLAN, using a VLAN in and of itself means that traffic is segmented away from the main plant network, or actually the enterprise network. What Rockwell does recommend is, and again, this will vary depending upon your specific circumstances in your facility, but Rockwell, part of the CPWE, the Converged Plant-Wide Ethernet Design Guide, the next step would be to look at the organization of those assets on the plant floor. So if there's a mixing department and a welding department and a blending area, ideally using that concept of VLAN segmentation and essentially breaking those different domains into their own VLAN. And this way you don't, number one, you avoid traffic from one work area or work cell from bleeding over to its adjacent one, number one. But the one of the largest benefits of doing full segmentation on the plant floor is you're also limiting what's called the broadcast domain. So in very simple terms, if there's a catastrophic issue that's affecting a specific zone or work cell within the plant, because they are on their own segmented VLAN, that traffic disruption doesn't bleed across other adjacent areas. So yes, obviously, the mix room or the blend room or the weld room, or again, however your facility is physically laid out, you limit the potential negative effects of that type of disruption or condition from propagating across the entire facility. So again, the fact that there's already a VLAN dedicated to the OT side, that's a great start. But again, the process being to even take that a number of steps further to again, the goal is to, in Mark's point, creating a very robust network environment where things like disruptions are essentially isolated on that specific VLAN and won't propagate across the rest of the enterprise. So, good question.
Yeah, that's a great first step. A lot of these that we've worked on there has already been, the IT said, well, we created a VLAN for the OT network. Well, one of the more recent examples was the customer had that VLAN created, but they couldn't plug into their network for their slitters because every time they still plugged in, nodes were dropping off and they were losing communication. So it's, again, that work focused on that machine level network inside of that VLAN is where our projects really do begin. Wireless deep packet inspection, continuous threat detection software services, all after the initial assessments, as deeper dives are required, and Rexel's here to support you through that with our wide offering from our manufacturing partners. So if there are requests or inquiries that want to first start taking a look at the wireless, we can help with that. If continuous threat detection, incident monitoring is something that you're looking for insight on, we can help with services specific to that as well. And the remote access also. And as I mentioned, there are a lot of benefits from a documented machine level network. And in this IIoT and factory of the future work from home world that we're living in now, robust networks and documentation on those networks are the foundation to really keeping manufacturing strong here in the States. And we've really got the tools to help your facility continue to move forward. And as we're coming to the end, but I mentioned a lot of our projects are starting because the customers are looking for data. Alarming software from like Win911 or Factory Talk Transaction Manager, CMMS solutions, the Factory Talk family in general. But in order to deliver reliable and real-time data, we need to sometimes do some work on the network. We want the analytics projects and the data acquisition projects for you to be successful. But if there's not documentation on the reliability of that network, then we all could be setting ourselves up for failure. So being able to take a deeper dive on the network, helps with collecting information. And we'll dive into analytics offerings further, again, in one of the upcoming Tech Tuesday sessions in the first quarter of 21. And that brings me to the end of the discussion points there. Not bad. Left a couple minutes left inside if there were any other questions, but we do appreciate you joining today. And if there are any other questions, we're happy to address those now.
Mark, nothing in the chat, but if folks want to come off mute and have a question as opposed to typing, go right ahead. We welcome that. Or if you have any of the subject matters that Mark talked about, whether it be analytics or we all feel that the best defense is a good offense, right? With cyber, you want to talk about cyber with us, contact your account manager or one of us, either Tom, myself, or Mark, and we can talk to you about your individual situation, even if it's VLAN, and as Mark said, even machine level help or assistance. We're here. Work with your IT folks if you're on the OT side of the house and you want to help us with them and talk IT languages. We welcome that. So you're not out there alone. We're here to help.
Right.
Tom, did you have anything?
Okay, just checking to make sure I wasn't still on mute. In my role as being the network guy, I've been in this position for going on 5 years. And the comment about getting IT involved, quite frankly, I feel like in a great percentage of my engagements, I feel like a marriage counselor, because sometimes it's amazing the animosity between IT and OT. And literally I've been in situations where the IT guys and the production guys, the automation engineers, will not sit with each other even in the same room. And that's not an exaggeration. I mean, those types of situations are out there. So sometimes getting a third party involved to help bridge that communication gap is actually, quite frankly, a real win. That, come on, folks, we're all playing on the same team type of thing. So I've had to facilitate encounter groups many times over the last few years. So
yeah, not nice, but yeah, sometimes it happens. And when you manage the IP addresses and
yeah, right,
there's a reason for it. But again,
and then it's been interesting in some of those projects too to see how, after we started the project and moved along and realized, to Tom's point, everybody's on the same team here, they ended really well.
Yes.
And there was a better working relationship after, because all OT was looking for was help on the network, eliminate the reasons they keep losing communication. And all IT knew was that this guy kept asking for IP addresses and what's the issue going on. Mm-hmm. But then once the project initiated, the migration was complete, there was work already done, and the results speak for themselves. Then they turned out to be, okay, let's do it again. We got to go to this section over here. And now we're moving on to the mold department or whatever the scenario was. It's funny how they start, and it's really interesting to see them end. So we're, like John mentioned, our team's here to help and be a resource for you.
Guys, I don't see any more in the chat, and nobody's come off mute other than us three talking. So I'm sure we all got work to do. So yeah. Please, if anyone on the call wants any more information on any of the subject matters or networking, reach out to one of us or your outside sales rep or one of my team specialists, and we'll follow up with you. Thank you.